racism has been a topic in existence for years. And some people are just saying that, really? I didn't know that was really happening. And it's been kind of mind boggling to know that people have just been kind of having a blind eye to what's going on, even in their workplaces. They notice that there's a glass ceiling for some people working within their companies. They're noticing that Blacks are not reaching the same amount. I'll just say it like this: their salaries are different for doing the same job.
Mm-hmm.
So now I think this is time. I think this is a great movement as far as what's going on with the protests, where we have all races coming together and actually marching. It's funny, my brother in California, he was telling me, this is outside of LA, he said that the majority of the people marching are actually white people and Hispanics. So I thought that was really amazing. And I think that is catching on across the country. Now, there's been something that's really been going on, and I think this is great that the media is focusing on it, is that this whole thing has gone around the world. So this is a worldwide movement. I think we need training, as I mentioned before, but it's different from what you would call cultural diversity type training. We need to call it something else, because that kind of has I would say, a limited type of result from it. So I think that we need to bring in some experts to really teach the people, white, Black, Hispanic, or whatever, what it means to be in an involved situation involving racism.
Right.
And then to take this and move it to where we want it to go, to action and results. So I think we need to use the media to do that. I would really like to be involved in some of the specifics for that to make it happen, because we definitely need a change.
Thank you, Bonnie. Kelly, what's on your mind?
I think I'm thinking about it at a very relational level. So just like you guys, I got a lot of phone calls from, coworkers, colleagues, and friends saying, what do I do? And we've actually been having some conversations over the last couple of weeks. And I think there's a lot of apprehension there about, what do I do? What do I say? What do I ask? What shouldn't I ask? And I think one of the things that has kind of been put on my heart in these conversations is just like, when you're connecting with, for my white allies and my white colleagues, and you're talking to your Black coworkers, friends, and neighbors, et cetera, think about the level of empathy you would want, right? Because if I think about a week or 2 weeks ago, I was pretty traumatized, because after 3 months of pivoting a 100% in-person business, in COVID-19 to be 100% virtual. And then, the George Floyd situation happens, we're reacting. And then when the reaction and the protesting is alive and well right here in our communities and touching us and impacting us, I needed a breather. And so one of the things I kind of shared with them was, what kind of empathy would you want if your family had just gone through a crisis? How would you want to be approached? You need to think about using that same level of intentionality, presence, patience, and empathy should be the foundation for how you approach your colleagues to come up with some of those plans, so some of those solutions. Because I think one of the things that's key is, if you don't understand the walk, if you don't understand the feelings, if you don't understand, why maybe your Black colleagues feel the way that they do, it's very hard for you to sit at those tables when we're coming up and devising solutions, because you haven't had that storyteller to put, a great, take the headlines and put some flesh on it. So one of the things we've been talking about is just the importance of building trust. What kind of trust do you want to trust in a relationship? So our job, I think, too, as Black allies, is to create a safe space for them. to be gracious and give them some grace, because they're going to mess up. They're going to make some mistakes. But if people, how do people learn? And we all know that. And most of us are involved in coaching or educating. Everybody needs safe space to learn. So building that trust is meaning, say what you mean and mean what you say. Don't fake the funk. You know, we know what that is. Being vulnerable. Gradually, and providing space for that. And remembering the role of respect, giving each other the benefit of the doubt, expressing your feelings, and taking risk, right? Because these conversations are risky conversations for many of us. And I think to put the real heart into what we're looking for out of solutions, and not just don't send me a statement, just don't black out your social media page. It's going to involve us taking really risks. And I think giving space for the give and take. So I think that's the part that I'd like to see. And it's kind of been put on me and inspired, is when do we really look at it, not just at an institutional level, not just at a societal level, but I think it's the people who make up those institutions, who make up our communities. Are we really connecting at the very interpersonal level too?
I'm hearing a lot of common themes. The theme of taking action and having a plan, that came up again. I also heard having empathy for the situation and for other people. Grace, extending grace and understanding. And also taking risks, talking about the hard things, because that's the only way we're going to make progress. Katrina, are you back on? Okay.
Yes, I am here.
We'll
Can
Let
you
give
it
hear
her.
work,
me?
CJ, but I
All
want
right,
to
I'm here. Can you hear me? Oh, okay. I think I'm here. Am I? Can you? Okay.
against Black women to determine
Mm.
what's more important. What's your response? What's the panel's response to statements that may allude to, yes, we know about George Floyd, why isn't our attention on Breonna Taylor as well? Just some equity there. But can you just talk about the subtle dissensions that I feel may come into play when people try to pitch Black men and Black women against each other with situations like this?
Great question.
Well, I feel like there's always distraction involved and an attempt to divide.
Hmm.
And that is not what this should be about. This should be about equality and to put an end to this problem of racism, and to educate, to show people that it doesn't matter, there's been tons of shootings and killings and things like that. But the issue is we want them to stop. We're not trying to divide our people. We're trying to come together, show the world what's going on and what we will no longer tolerate.
Yeah. I would agree. I think it's very important for us to, since there's so much divisiveness in our politics and everything that's going on in our country, it's either easy to say, are you on this side or on this side? So I agree that we have to stay focused on the unity within our group and our people. I do think it's important, though, uh, after 11 years of working with girls, Black girls, Latina girls, but predominantly Black girls, there is an intense focus. And many of us who have been in research, in institutions, but definitely girl servant organizations too. It's important as we're thinking about preparing our young people, our boys, right? We've seen a lot of social media stuff about, I'm scared for my Black boy when I send him out. Quite frankly, we have to be just as scared for our Black girls. I mean, we've seen those videos where our girls are being manhandled as if they are men. And so that lack of empathy, that lack of value on the innocence of a girl, a Black girl, I think is something that we have to be mindful and vigilant about. And we have to, quite frankly, be leaders in making sure that it's restored. That's why it's so critically important for us to come together as male mentors, as female mentors, as Black men and Black women, and talk about how we need to love on each other, right? Because when we're loving on each other, I love my daddy, I love my brothers, I love my uncle, I love my love interest in my life and what that looks like, because they're picking up cues of what and how we restore and how we protect each other. And so girls are important, girls are vital. And I know, even from the standpoint of running an organization, sometimes I'm often like, how often are we going to keep forgetting the girls? So I am never one, because and I'll take it back to when President Obama came out with My Brother's Keeper. That was that same opportunity that the divisiveness was about to come in and say, well, what about the girls? Forget about this. No, no, no. I'm cool, because we need to stand in the gap. Our boys, our brothers need our support. Those things that they experience are unique to them. But the thing is, when they look at the numbers of school detentions, expulsions, suspensions, out of school confinement for Black girls, those numbers far surpass any other group of females. And in many cases, those numbers are surpassing Black boys. That school to prison pipeline that we've talked mostly about, Black and brown boys, is alive for Black girls. So I think it's important that we do stay focused on love. We do stay focused on unity and connecting and showing what trusting, loving, good working relationships between Black women and Black men look like. But we can't put our head in the sand. And part of my job as a storyteller about what's really happening on the ground for all of our young people, but particularly for our girls, is that our girls are in crisis too. And so they could be just as liable, just as likely to be pulled over and not know what to do and face some of the same experiences that our boys are, particularly when we're talking about police brutality. So I think it's a balance. I'm not gonna fall for the okey doke, but I gotta make sure that I'm being honest and I'm educating and learning at the same time about how do we support both our boys and our girls.
That's right. Katrina, I know you've got to have an opinion on this question, given.
Yeah, no, I agree with what everyone else said. I do think we do have to stay focused because there is a lot of division out there. And then also just thinking about the role that the media plays in everything, and how information comes out, and how George Floyd's, death was portrayed, and how we found out about Breonna. And so I just think, media has a role in all of this. But again, as everyone said, we do need to stay focused. Our Black girls do need some attention too, even though, I hear about champs all the time, the Black boys, which is very important. But as Ms. Fair mentioned, the statistics for our Black girls, there's a lot of improvement and a lot of support our Black girls need as well. And so I do think sometimes there could be less value portrayed around Black girls and Black women as well, even as we're talking about Black boys and Black men too. So I think it is a further conversation that needs to be had. But I hear what you all are saying. But we have to stay focused too, and not the division between boys, girls. But we need justice and equity for all Black and brown people. I can loop back around to that other question. Something happened, I think, where we got cut off a bit. So sorry. I had a detour. I think you all were talking about communicating with our white allies. Yes. So one thing that I wanted to share, just to kind of add on to what everybody else was saying, again, about the empathy, and I like what Kelly Fair was talking about, as far as we have to have that empathy to really, feel what other people are feeling. And I heard a conversation between two preachers when this was all going on, and the question that the white minister asked the Black minister was, how can I help? What should we be doing? And he had him think of the question, how would you feel and what would you do if your son or daughter were senselessly killed by law enforcement? And I thought that question, evoked empathy. It evoked, action. Like, what would you do? How would you feel? And I think that is something that we need to all be asking ourselves. And as we are talking to, I work largely African-American women, predominantly white staff. And so I am getting a lot of questions. What should we do? What is our response? What should we do moving forward? We don't want this to stop once, the trend is over and nobody else is talking about it. Like, what's the conversation? what's next. And also, one thing, I was just listening to a talk by Ibram Kendi, the author of Stamped and How to Be an Anti-Racist. And one thing that he was talking about is that how George Floyd's death made people feel bad. I don't know if you all heard this talk, but it was a really great talk. And how when things like this happen, we go through this process of feeling bad. And then our goal is really, how can we feel better? So that's really the goal of what we're trying to accomplish. And so we might donate, we might demonstrate, we might protest, we might join a book club. We might try to learn something new. And so we do all these things to try to make us feel better. And then once we feel better, then we kind of forget about it and we move on because we feel better now. But it's, again, keeping that daily empathy alive, and that feeling the hurt and the pain that other people are feeling. And I also, when I was thinking about that, I was thinking a little bit about church, how we, say we can go to church and we can dance and we can shout and have our demonstration, we can pay our tithe and our offering, and then we can read the word, do our Bible study. But then when we leave out of the church, are we loving each other? Are we being kind to each other? Are we respecting each other? And so just that scripture that says, how can you say you love God who you don't see, and hate your brother who you see every day? And so one of the things that I want to communicate to like white allies and is that, the importance of just being kind too. Like, you can demonstrate, certainly donate, and certainly educate yourself. That quote, if you know better, you'll do better. But also just practically, be kind to your Black brothers and sisters on a day-to-day basis. Because I've seen people, you can protest, but then when you're on the job, or you see people in the grocery store, just show kindness. I mean, kind of like the practice what you preach. I think also goes a long way in showing that Black lives do matter. Black lives are valued on a day-to-day basis, something very practical. So just wanted to throw that out there as well.
And to remember, while doing all of these things, that this is a worldwide movement, and it will go on for quite some time. This is not, us checking a few boxes to make us feel good or to say we did something today or next week. But as Bonnie said, there's a lot of work to do, and this is something that we need to commit to for the long haul. And Kelly, I was just reflecting on a few of the things you mentioned. You mentioned how, like, over these past several months, like many of us, we have been trying to take care of ourselves, our mental, our spiritual, our physical health. We've been trying to, save and, transform organizations in the midst of this pandemic. And then the situation happens with George Floyd, and it just takes everything to a whole nother level. And there are moments where we just, might not be well. And when we need moments of stillness, and at the same time, it is our responsibility to create spaces for others, whether they be Black or white allies, for them to ask their questions and understand that they're going to, make some mistakes, and that's okay. What I'm basically hearing is just the plight of Black women. We always have to carry so much at one time. And I don't know, I'm sitting with that a little bit, and probably, speaking my truth, but it's a lot. It's a lot. We have a rich history of showing up for so many people during moments like this. And I consider that in lots of ways a tremendous blessing and responsibility, but it's also hard. So let me ask you all this, focusing on the one thing, because maybe that's the solution to all this, but maybe not as well. What is the one thing that you all believe, if addressed, will offer the most value to our Black boys and our Black men?
Vondell and I actually met a couple years ago. We have been trying to reach out and connect. And a former boss and now friend and colleague of mine, Dwayne Bryant, who had an organization, Intervisions. And I used to work for Dwayne. And I learned a lot during my tenure. So he knew and helped connect the both of us in our work. But one of the things I learned so much during my time with Dwayne was he did this thing at the school districts that we did a character education programs with, and it was a swap. So it was times that, of course, most often and frequently, the women worked with the girls and the boys worked with the men. But there were times where he would definitely do a swap. And that's critically important because great mentors, seeing what great character looks like is not just, boys seeing what a man does and how a man thinks and how he processes, or the same thing for girls. They need to know what great character looks like when it shows up in their community, in both men and with women. So I think that it's not only important for us to take the mic, and have, brothers like Mondale share the mic with leading ladies on a time like this leading up into Father's Day, but I think we need to be more intentional about having really strong, both male and female role models for both boys and girls. I know on Polished Pebbles, we started years ago doing a non-traditional daddy-daughter dance. Knowing that unfortunately far too many of our girls don't have regular positive daily male role models in their lives. And so we started putting out the call, and girls could bring dad, brother, cousin, uncle, grandpa, whoever with them to the dance. But if you didn't have anybody, that was cool. And we worked on encouraging them to come as well. And so the men would show up and show out. And for so many of our kids, it's a myth that we can be loving and supporting of each other as male and females. So I think as many times like that, where just in that instance where Polished Pebbles, the girls got to see these strong male role models, they had a good time, they treated them like ladies. There's things that we can do on both sides to make sure that we're exhibiting and being very intentional about putting strong male and female role models in front of both our boys and our girls. I think that's the most important thing. It's not one way or the other. It's all of us together.
Kelly, I think you're would like to talk about exposure and access to for our young men of color. A few years ago, I put on a gang summit with a couple ministers from California who had roots here in Chicago. And I brought media from all over the world for the event. It was an amazing thing. But one other thing that I did was I put gang members in front of those cameras and, radio announcers and newspaper reporters to let them tell their stories. And what really got me, and it really kind of sat in my heart, I started listening to what they were saying. Then I started listening to them kind of breaking down from the strong macho type and all of that. And they were saying, if only I knew my father, they didn't know their fathers, or they didn't have a relationship with their father. And it goes back to what you're talking about, Kelly, this love thing. But I believe a lot of people who run the wrong paths, as far as our young men, that main problem may be the fact of that lack of a relationship with their father or some type of male person that they can count on. And I would just say that fathers, I would encourage you to step it up if you're not. And for the young men that are not in this category, I just feel like opportunity to create wealth, opportunity to create programming and media, opportunity to tell your story, get your voice out there, opportunity to go and rule the world the way you want to rule it. I think that is one thing that would be great for our young men and advantageous for them.
Katrina, what's your one thing?
All right. So I heard it's kind of just jumping off of what Miss Winfrey said. I heard, mentorship, fatherlessness. And so what I think, it's kind of two things, but I think our boys and our men need to be seen and heard. And so I think they need to, and that's really what mentorship does, the work that Vondell does. I see you, I hear you, you're valued, you're important. I'm taking time out for you. You have a God-given purpose. And so I think that is really important. As a school administrator, I take a lot of time to just sit and listen to our students informally, like in the lunchroom, at recess, and the stories that you hear, especially talking to some of our Black boys, some really painful stories, and they've been through a lot. And so, but yet they keep fighting, and they have a lot of responsibility going on in their lives. And so, I think about that, the importance of them being seen and heard. And then also I think about how can we, for our boys who don't feel seen and heard or don't have hope, how can we reignite, or how can we ignite the fire in them to kind of help them come alive. On a very personal note, I have a little 6-year-old boy, and one of the things, he's 6, he's very cute. One of the things that I like to do with him is a little check-in, just to see how he's doing. So I'll do like a 1 to 5. How are you feeling? Are you well today? How are you? And just to see how he's doing, because I want him to know you matter. I care. You're important. I want him to have a good sense of self, that he is loved, and then also to have that confidence from God as well, confidence in God. And so I just think it's important that our Black boys and our men feel seen and heard, and have that positive sense of self.
Seen, heard, mentors, all super relevant to the work ahead and the work right now. Tony, do you have a question from the audience for us?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a couple of questions, but I'll deal with the first one first. And it is, what are your thoughts about sex trafficking, and what laws need to be implemented to prevent the exploitation of our Black girls?
Yeah. So I'll take that one. Sex trafficking is a huge issue. Illinois is at one point the third highest state in the United States with rates of sex trafficking. I think that largely the public is unaware of what sex trafficking looks like. I'm a part of College Pebbles is a member organization, a coalition of urban girls Chicago. And so it's a 25-seat organization of girl serving organizations. So we come together collectively to make sure that we're putting out data, putting out research, but also learning and engaging folks as well. And so it's a huge issue. But if we watch Law and Order SVU, we think that sex trafficking only happens to, white European girls. That's how it's viewed and how we may perceive it, largely through the media. But the reality is, it's happening to our girls right here at our schools and our communities. The pimps don't look like the pimps that we see on music videos. Pimps are regular, everyday people, and the same thing. So, what I've learned is a lot of empathy, even as somebody working in the schools. You got that one girl that doesn't come. And so often when we think about poor attendance, when we think about seemingly lacking motivation, because they don't have motivation, they're lazy, they don't get it. No, who knows what that girl's walk is like before she gets to school? Who knows what she's doing to have a safe roof over her head so that she's not homeless, so that she even has tampons and toiletries and clean underwear. And so sometimes that is where the pathway with sex trafficking. And then, we have a whole nother session about stripper culture, all of these things that are really impacting our girls. So there's an intense need to increase the awareness about it. I have to be honest, I'm not in criminal justice, so we do have some experts on the Coalition of Urban Girls. So I would implore everybody to Google and look up CUG Chicago. And so that way you can get some of our data and research that we put out there about girls in the city and get some information about those particular issues. And we have a great researcher, Dr. Kisha Roberts, who is an expert on the topic, and we could talk about it more. So I don't know all the legislation, but I think even when we come back to talking some of the issues that we talked about earlier, these conversations, we got to start bringing in our elected officials, our local legislators, state and federal, so that we can become more aware of the issues, but also learn more advocacy skills in our community. How do we expand the protests? How do we expand the movement? We have to learn the language of legislation and what our role as community servants, as citizens looks like, to raise these issues, create the awareness, and then play a role in pushing our legislators to impact legislation. So that's what I can say. But check out Code Chicago so you can get more data on that particular issue.
Thank you, Kelly, for that perspective and resource. Anyone else on sex trafficking?
I said what Miss Fair said.
Jay. So Lindsay Edwards would like to know, do you feel that having a single mother group at schools to encourage them to get involved would help our youth feel empowered, or a single father group?
I think it doesn't have to just be single mother, single father. It could just be a mother group, a father group. I think there's always opportunities for more specific conversations. I know in Polish Pebbles, we did the work with the dads, but we do have Mommy and Me conferences and hangouts. We realized that over these 11 years that the skill sets when it comes to life skills and communication skills and career readiness is not something that's just the girls need. Our families, that whole ecosystem supporting our kids, the families are in need of the same skills too. So we've been devising solutions to come up with ways, whether it's our Mommy and Me conference that we hold annually or our Mommy and Me hangout, so that girls and moms are building bonds together, working on their communication and career skills together, whether it's like last summer, they produced their own podcast, and this summer, moms and daughters are actually putting together their own business plans. I think that it's intentional where it's ways for them to build relationships, but it also kind of builds in this informal space for fellowship. So I think that fellowship provides space for learning, for growing, connecting. So I'd be an advocate for that. I'd love to hear what the other ladies have to say. Particularly, I'm sure you guys have things in your institutions too.
I agree. Thinking of it more of a family's perspective because families are so diverse today, and so just thinking about involving everyone in the process to support our students. So not necessarily keeping it separate. And a lot of the events that like we used to do, like daddy daughter dance and things like that, and now it's more of like a significant other because some children may not have dads or different things like that. So just opening up the support that we have more widely to families.
Creating memories. So we want to keep, it's flowing in a positive direction. And it's great to just bring in people, families and also business leaders and into the environment to show students that the old motto, we're here for you. Whatever you need, we're here for you to do whatever you want us to do. We care about you. The emotional aspect of this is very important. One of the things that I'm seeing that's happening is that there are a lot of students that are having problems and want to commit suicide. So when you get more people around you who care about you, that sends a different message. I do a lot of counseling for young men and women who just say they want to end their lives. And I just thank God for the fact of him intervening and letting the people know that they're valued and they have a purpose here and they need to stay and live out their lives. But not everyone is, receiving that type of help. And I just hope that with people coming in from the outside as well as family members into different environments like school, this would build self-esteem and allow people to get to purpose and live professionally.
Tony has one final question from the audience, and then I have one question that I'm going to ask before we wrap up. Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, so another question just came in, but it's something I just want to deal with and acknowledge and get a response from you directly, CJ, for sake of time. Black women have been holding it down. Black women are the backbone of the church. Black women are literally the backbones of the community. We have to acknowledge that. We have 4 powerhouse women on this call right now. You, what does it directly mean for you to be a Black woman navigating white spaces And I don't want to use the word power because it may just seem a little bit too pompous, but you're in a place of authority in how you lead. But Black women have to be acknowledged for holding down our families, for holding down our children, for holding down our sons. What do you say and how do you feel being in this position that's a gift and an opportunity for you to continue to hold up that banner?
Who wants to get us
For me,
started?
I welcome it. I find it to be a great opportunity when you're strong and you're Black. You just sort of accept the fact that you are a lot to a lot of people. I praise God for the opportunity. I couldn't do it without God. One of the things that I live by is I listen to God and do. And when the time comes, as far as with my boys and with young Black men in the community, I sit, I listen to them, I talk to them. We sit and we plan out their lives. We talk about their girlfriends. Some of them have lost their mothers early as well as their fathers. You know, I empathize with them. I give my all to people. I want everyone I meet to live the best life possible. I want them to know my God and know that He's there for them. And I want them to know that this is a love journey that we're on. And we're all traveling the same way, loving people as we meet them. And sometimes we meet into the unlovables. So I do a lot of training in that area as well to try to unite people. And as a Black woman, I have a lot on me, seeing that I lost my mother when I was younger. And I had to learn from like other women. But I am just so blessed to be called upon, to be able to help, to be able to assist, and to just say, you know what, we can do it. And sometimes, I'm not just by myself. I have my husband. I rely on his strength, and we work it together. And it's an honor to be a Black woman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's getting some snaps for that one. I mean, I think it's our legacy. It's always been who we've been. And so it's an honor to be able to continue on with that legacy. I think about it, it's the ultimate CEO life. I mean, she may not be the Fortune 500 CEO. That Black woman may be a single mom. She may be re-entering the workforce for the first time, but that's a boss and a CEO. I mean, when you look around and you look at the mothers that have been, whether they're single mothers or mothers of a two-parent household, how we have been coping during COVID-19 to put our mask on and nurture ourselves and keep breathing and keep going and making sure that we're taking care of our families. And then showing also, I think a huge part about leading in crisis is showing how you receive help. It ain't always about me and everything I have on the back. Our legacy as Black women is not only to be the strong Black woman, but when you look at the civil rights movement, you look at all these different things where Black women did these powerful things. We connected. We received help from other organizations outside our community. We received and were comfortable with getting help from our Black men as well. So I think that it's a critical piece. It's a part of our legacy, and I'm proud to do it because I think it gives our young people, our boys and our girls, the encouragement to take that leap beyond your 4-to-6 blocks, to take that leap into a career opportunity that you had not considered, because you must innately have that strength and that ability to do it because your mama did it, because your grandma did it, because your auntie does it. It's who we are. And so by virtue of being in our community and being our young people, it's making sure that they're clear that they know that type of leadership, that executive leadership, no matter what's going on, is who they are too.
Can you hear? Oh, you can't. Oh, can you hear me now? Okay, great. So what I'll add to that is that I am currently, African American principal in a predominantly white school and Hispanic, and but largely white population. And when I took on the principalship at this school, I knew that there would be some challenges, and even feeling like worthy to even like lead this school of like I am truly the minority. And what it really taught me is to go into diverse spaces and to be confident. I was just watching Michelle Obama's documentary Becoming, and she talked about like being in elite boardrooms and in palaces, and even going to Princeton, and being doubted by her counselor. But when she went to Princeton, one thing she mentioned is she was like, these people aren't necessarily smarter than me. She's like, they're not any more valuable than I am. It was just kind of that realization, and just knowing that you can show up at the table, you are worthy, you can make a positive impact. And for me, I believe God has me here as an example of Black leadership for kids that don't necessarily look like me. They're seeing leadership, that African American leadership, in this role, which they probably have not seen up and close and personal. So I'm an example in that way. So it's been a very interesting experience for me, but it has shown me that I can lead in diverse spaces, and God wants us to be able to lead everywhere, and take our influence wherever He leads us to. So I just wanted to kind of add that nugget in there as well. Mhm.
A proud Black woman. I could not be prouder to be a Black woman. And every day, every decision I make, every challenge I encounter, I know I'm carrying the perspective and the wisdom of my Black ancestors, and all the Black women who have made me strong and resilient and given me courage. And it doesn't mean it's easy, but I certainly feel like I'm covered in those moments. And so I love my Black skin, despite the fact some people try and make it a negative. It's always going to be a positive in my heart. Okay, so as we wrap, I just have one final question, and then Vondel's going to close us out. Bonnie, yesterday when we were doing our sound check, I'm not going to say this as eloquently as you said, but you said you're real big on words and what you say. And so in this final moment, I want you all to leave us with a word. What is the one thing, given everything that we've talked about today and everything that we're seeing throughout our country, what is the one word that you want to leave with our audience tonight?
I would say for me that one word is love. That's the one thing that's going to get us through this pandemic, the first pandemic, and this second one as well. Love, love, love. I always say that I'm real big on words, because in my life, when I wanted to, work at different places, I've always spoke them into existence. I always say that God didn't tweet the world into existence, He spoke it into existence. So words are very important to me. And I think that one of the greatest words of all is love, is what we're going to need to glue us all together, and for us to move forward and achieve the things that we need to achieve.
Can you hear me? Okay. All right, so the word I would choose is joy. So joy is a word that's very important to me, and I know that Vondel's done some events called Black Boy Joy, and there's a scripture that says, "The joy of the Lord is my strength," and I just think when I think about joy, it's really being grounded and having perspective, thinking about everything else that's going on in the world, knowing who you belong to, who's in control, knowing that everything is working together for the good, and ultimately what I want for our Black and our brown um, boys and girls, is for them to walk and live in joy. I want them to walk and live in the strength of the Lord, and so I just want to put that word joy out there. And that's what I want to leave everybody with. Yep. Joy is important.
Awesome. I think my word is faith. I used to love sitting in church. I grew up in Christ Universal Temple on the south side of Chicago with the Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman. And so, so many sermons, the title was We've Come This Far by Faith. And when I think about, the state of our young people, when I think about the state of where we are with, thinking through the crisis with racism in America, it's been so powerful because now I'm at that stage and that age where I'm like, the youngins got this because I'm not about to do this or do that, or even things that I may not necessarily always agree with the approach. I think one of the things that I've been inspired by is the risk taking. And that risk taking and how it's really kind of pushed things forward in ways. And so it's this wonderful balance. But when I think about a song and I think about faith, it's that balance of not only the newness and giving that space to learn and to grow from their risk and how they're pushing us into new ways of being, but to make sure that there's a respect and a regard for where we've come. We're sitting on the shoulders, we're sitting on the foundation of the marches that have happened in the past. And I think it's critically important. I've heard people say stuff, well, this is not my grandfather's or my great grandfather's march, but your grandfather and your great grandfather's march was meaningful. And so if we don't stand in that gap and understand and help them value faith, us as an older generation to have faith in sometimes new approaches, and it may not always happen the way we want it to or we thought to, but my God, wonderful things happen. But to make sure that we stand in the gap also for the younger generation to say, we've come this far by faith, and make sure that it is our duty that they understand who they are, because we're always making sure that we're the storytellers and we're conveying that part of our narrative and that part of our identity, which they're going to need as they're moving forward. So faith is everything, but joy and love and all those other things I think are just as critically important. So I'm glad to be a part of this word cloud.
Love, joy, and faith. I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much, ladies. It has been a pleasure talking with you tonight. I appreciate your honesty, your realness, and just pouring your stories into this discussion. I'm just grateful to have been able to share this space with you this evening. Okay, Vondell, are you there to take us away?
Yes. Oh man, I am so full. I was like actually taking a lot of notes because everything that y'all said added value to this very important conversation. This was the right move. So thank y'all so much. And listen, everybody that's out here who did not get a chance to stream this live, remember we streamed on Periscope and Twitch, and YouTube and Facebook. Make sure you share this conversation with someone. I believe it will help someone. I believe that someone can actually be changed by the power of words. Yes, by the power of words. And so definitely there were a lot of words spoken by these wonderful ladies. So thank you, moderator Constance Jones. Let's give her some snaps and claps, everybody. Yeah. Shout out to Miss Bonnie Winfrey. Thank you so much. Give her some snaps and claps, everybody. My wife, Dr. Patrina Singleton. It was her first panel ever.
Last.
She said last. She did a great job. Snaps and claps. And of course, Polished Pebbles, Miss Kelly Fair. Yes. And I want to thank Reverend Tony Briscoe for being behind the scenes. Thank you so much for dedicating your time every single week. He's been on here helping push these conversations forward. We cannot do this alone. So if you need help, if you're concerned about what supports, what systems, what solutions need to be put into place, reach out, connect with these individuals offline. And I'm sure they'll be more than happy to help support you. So again, I want to thank everybody for joining the virtual town hall number 6. We will be back next week to continue this very important conversation. I love everybody, and that's what we need. And I heard it many times tonight. We need love back in the picture. It's too much division. It's too much hate. We need love. So, and I'm going to close with this. Y'all remember when Jesus asked Peter, he said, Peter, do you love me? Peter said, yes, I love you, Lord. Jesus asked him a second time, Peter, do you love me? So what was he saying? The first time he asked, when Peter responded, he was talking about eros love, erotic love, the human love, the love that runs out. The second time he asked Peter, he was talking about agape love. That's the unconditional love. That's what we need to get back to. I truly believe that once we push past all of the pain, the hurt, and we have every right to be pain and hurt due to the situations in terms of racism and oppression that's going on. But I guarantee what's going to unlock it, I truly still believe that Jesus' power is strong. Jesus' power is alive, and he walks in unconditional love. So I'm not picking on anybody, but I got to say this. If you are a white evangelical pastor and you haven't spoke from your pulpit or from your virtual pulpit on what's going on, I charge you to read your Bible again. Because when Jesus came, he wasn't with the religious people. He was with the ones who were oppressed, hurt, all of those individuals who were forgotten about. So I'm challenging everybody. Let's get back to Jesus Christ. Let's get back to love. And with that, we're going to close out. I hope you enjoyed tonight, and we'll tune in next week, 7:30 p.m. Thank you. Have a great one.